Okay, welcome everybody. Rapid Fire Golf, episode 7. Monday night out here at the Bethlehem Golf Club. For those who are new and haven't been here before, Rapid Fire Golf, you ask your golf questions. I will answer them rapid fire style, best I can. And as soon as you guys have a question you're ready, you can post them up on the side and I'll roll through them. And we'll work to get through all of them in the hour here together. Hopefully everyone's safe, playing golf, enjoying the golf on TV, and we'll rock and roll. There appears to be a little lag on the screen, but hopefully it's a-okay. 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 A little live view practicing. Yeah, it's kind of a little laggy on my screen. Is that okay on yours? So whenever you guys are ready, you can fire away your questions. We will. A little laggy. Little laggy. Little laggy. All right, that feels good. Feels like we are ready. Very laggy. Yeah, we're getting some laggy too. Ryan, trying to feel the squat in my downswing. Could you go through some feelings I should feel? See if we can do anything with that. So the squat, Ryan, in your downswing. The downswing lowering motion in terms of the lower body happens from reflexing. So as my knees bend more, my lower body goes down. You know, a simple way to feel that would be the belt line, or if you look at where your belt space, then during your downswing, you want your belt buckle to get lower in the transition phase. Now, as your legs are bending and your belt buckle is getting lower, body. So it seems to be better now, Marilyn. Yeah, you're reflexing with the upper body. So really, to get lower, it's a legs increasing bend, and the simple feel again is the belt buckle going lower. So that'd be the starting point. So up to the top, both the right and left leg increase bend, or my belt buckle in space is actually going to lower some. So up to the top, as I'm getting close to the top now, my belt buckle's getting closer to the ground. Now I'm really turning as I do it, but belt buckle down would be piece number one to start the rotation. You can feel the left leg increasing bend. You can feel the right leg increasing bend, but making sure as you're doing that, you not just down and forward, you have to turn with it. So your belt buckle would feel down and pointed forward. So it's lower to the ground and pointed forward about 45 degrees. So belt buckle down and forward. That would be a rotational piece option. And then as you're doing that, your upper body is also really reflexing. So your upper body is also getting closer to the ground as you're doing that. But in terms of the lower body, that's where I would start with. Belt buckle going down as it goes around. Because if I lower my belt buckle, my legs are going to bend as a reaction to that. So I'd probably start with that first. Belt buckle points down. So it gets lower to the ground and points to the left. To start down, belt buckle down and around. That would be a good rotational piece to start and a good YouTube video. Okay, I think we're kind of back rolling here. Best drill for staying in posture. Well, Will, it depends on if you're coming out of posture on the backswing or the downswing. If you're coming out of posture on the backswing, if I'll put this club across my shoulders and your left shoulder is going too high, you need to feel more left bend. It's like a left side ab crunch, left shoulder closer to your left hip as you make your backswing. So it'd feel like your left shoulder's working more down as you're doing a little left side crunch on the way back. That would be the backswing posture piece. That would keep you in posture. If you wanted to do the follow through posture piece, if you come too far this way, hips forward, chest up, you would want to feel the opposite. So you'd feel head forward this way and this way, and then the lower body working back. So you'd feel head down. Like if this was a wall up from the golf ball, your head would break through it as your lower body works back. That would be the piece for the downswing. So head down and forward as your lower body motion works back. Those would be some places to start with in terms of losing posture, depending upon which side you're talking about. Terry, what are some feels in the transition from the top of the backswing to the downswing in regards to wrist conditions until up until impact? So Terry, it depends on what wrist conditions you have and need to fix. So always the fix is the opposite and exaggerated, right? Hopefully you've heard that like a broken record. So if you come down during the downswing and your left wrist is too cupped, you need to feel like it bows a lot. If your right wrist is too flat, you need to feel like it bends back a lot. If your wrist angles throw too much, you need to feel like you're increasing hinge. So whatever issue you see, you have to feel the opposite and exaggerate. And likely that issue stems from a problem earlier on. So if you have wrist angle issues coming down here, you're probably doing something earlier that's causing it. Could be bad clip, could be bad shaft angle, could be bad sequencing, etc. So that's really what's happening to start down. We've done a bunch of videos on how to fix those. If your left wrist gets too cupped here, you need to feel it more bowed. So you would feel the back of the hand more towards the camera and more towards the ground as you start your downswing. That would be the more bowed version. If bowed, which is rare, then you would feel the opposite. So that's what I would say. Figure out what your issue is and then feel the opposites in terms of the flexion extension and then the hinge on hinge. William, good evening. Hello. Any chance of re-explaining the hips during transition? Sure. So the hips during transition are going to do a couple movements from the top of the swing. If I were to like draw a line on my belt like this, they should transition on or under the same line, not go above the line. So my hips are going to be turning, right, as I start my downswing. So from the top here like this, as I'm getting close to the top, my pressure is working into my lead leg. And this is really happening as a reaction, just like if I was playing baseball, just like if I was throwing a ball, etc. My arms and hands, right before they're coming to the end of their backswing, as they're still working up, my lower body starting forward. So my lead leg increases flex. My lead side of my hip stays lower. My trail leg increases flex as I'm doing my turning components. The best overall drill for the lower body is to put a wall or a chair up outside your lead foot. And during the downswing, you want to get your belt buckle pushed up against that. You don't want your left hip, that'd be too much slide. You don't want to miss it, that'd be not enough slide. You want to get your belt buckle pushed up and forward of it. So if you're my target, I want to push my belt buckle up and forward, just left of the target. So when I come through, if the wall's in front of me, I'm pushing up and against it. My left hip stays higher than my right hip as I push up against the chair. That would give me the tilts. So I push my belt buckle towards 11 o'clock left of the target. Left hip stays above my right hip. That'll give me the tilts on the way through. So that's kind of a general overview. Terry, also when I look at video of my swing, it looks like I drop my hands in the transition, causing a little over the top swing. Anything I could do to fix this? Yeah, there's a lot you could do. Depends on why that's happening, but I would say for you, if your hands go this way too much, you would want to feel as you turn, like your left arm is going to work in against your pec, or your right shoulder is going to work more behind you, like retracted and adducted more behind you. So when you start your downswing, we're just talking about this today a little bit. If you normally go too far this way, you want to feel like your left bicep pulls in against your pec as you start your downswing, or like your right arm pulls more behind you. So you could feel a combination of those two movements as you start your downswing. Left arm more in against me, right arm pulls more behind me. And if I do that as I'm doing my transition pieces, that would make the club work more behind me, more from inside. So that would be where I'd start with that. And you could do a bunch of different, there's drills to do with that too, but in terms of feels, that would be the starting point. Fran, what's going on? Robert, why do I block shots with driver? Could be a couple reasons. Your ball position could be too far back, Robert. You could be aimed too far to the right with your feet, hips, or shoulders, one or all. You could be aimed square, but your whole body's too far to the right. You could swing too far to the right from inside. If the ball's a straight block with no curve, likely the ball's too far back, you're aimed too far right, or your swing direction's too far from inside. So with your driver, if I were you, I'd start by making sure the ball's forward enough, so kind of off the inside of the lead armpit. Make sure your aim is neutral, and then I would put a stick or a line down your target line, something like this, and look at it like what would I need to do to start the ball left of that stick? Like if I were to line up and the ball was neutral, and this was neutral, and the ball, if I needed to hit like a pull or start left of it, what would I need to feel to do that? So if I look at my target and I got to look left, I feel like I got to swing more across it and open my body up a little more. And I'd say, hey, okay, if I do that, does that get the ball started to the left, and then work up from there? The reality, Robert, is I'd have to see a video of your swing to give you a specific answer, but those would be some parts that I would look for. For those that are on here, we did launch our Fairway Wood Hybrid Masterclass. If you saw the video today, you'll see some videos throughout this week. We're going to do a 50% off all of the masterclasses, not just the Fairway Wood Hybrid, on the Podia. Maybe we'll put it within the conversation here, or link in the description afterwards. But if you go to Podia, it's in the description of all of our YouTube videos. The coupon code is HYBRID, 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 hybrid. 50% off all of the masterclasses on there. You could also join CogornoGolf.com. You get access to all of those for free. Or if I tell you to send me your swing, that's where I'm talking about. Matt, how similar is the downswing to an underarm throw or topspin forehand? Is that the right feeling to loop the club around you and then through the ball? Matt, that's a good feeling if you're someone who's too far over it. You know, the underhand throw would be me getting my trail arm really internally rotated, the arm behind me. And then as I work down, the arm gets really external and on the side. That works fairly well for someone who has a stronger grip, more closed club face, and get like a Dustin Johnson, that sort of motion. A lot of people aren't going to be that externally rotated with the trail arm, and the arm's not going to be that adducted across their chest as they start down. So I'd say it's not quite like a throwing motion. If I'm doing tennis, I'm doing a forehand like this, and I'm under, there's going to be some of that. You know, if someone hits a slice, you would want to feel more of that, right? You can feel the arm like a tennis motion, this way to this way. But in reality, there's a lot of other micro stuff. So I would say if you feel those things and it helps, that's great. But it's not exactly the same thing. There's a lot of micro stuff there. Hey, Eric, trying to improve my release. I still have troubles to not overturn my finish. I want my right arm to straighten post-impact without rotating too fast. Trying to improve my release. I have troubles not overturn my finish. I want my right arm to straighten post-impact without rotating too fast. So, yeah, I don't see a lot of people who rotate. Now, you could rotate too soon, right? There's a difference between rotating too much and too soon. So if you're saying you rotate too soon from the top, like ideally you turn your shoulders back 90 degrees, and then at left arm parallel, they're still back 45. They're still back 45 degrees there. If you're saying you're too open too early, you'd have to feel like you stay closed longer. Make sure your shoulders are turned to full 90, and then they stay back 45. And as you're doing that, you would feel like your arms and hands are a little bit deeper. They stay back a little bit more like this. And then you can feel like you throw the club at about a 45-degree angle. If that's what you're saying. You could also feel like your right shoulder stays back longer if you open too quick. So maybe your sensation is your right shoulder stays back longer, and then you throw your arms at 45. Your right shoulder stays back longer, and then you throw your right arm at 45. That would likely be closer to a draw pattern. So right shoulder more back, arm extended more towards 45. That should be more of kind of a push and draw motion. So that could be a starting point if that's what you mean. Scott, new premium member here. What's up, Scott? Great content. Thank you, sir. Oops, hang on. Hang on. I lost my position. Let me scroll back up here. Okay, Scott. What are your best drills to increase smash factor and ball speed with driver? Current 155 ball speed, but my smash is only 142. So Scott, I think smash factor and ball speed can be improved in a lot of different ways for each individual golfer. If there's 100 people here, We might need certain mechanics to make your stock foundational pieces good. For example, one person might swing too far to the right and lose centered contact. Another person might swing too far to the left. So for those two people, they need different things. So it's not like they need the same, not everyone needs the same thing, right, to increase it. So ideally, you being a member, now you can post your swing in the Facebook group and we can give you specific feedback on what exactly you should do. So let's make sure we take advantage of that. In general, in terms of producing more speed, like ball speed going up and smash is all about hitting center face. So whatever swing speed you have, hitting the center of the face more frequently. To do that, you have to figure out why you're not hitting center of face more frequently, which again could be 50 things, right? In terms of increasing actual speed, the drill we did today, which is like my new favorite sequencing drill, which is if I take my setup position and I make my backswing, I'm going to take about a halfway backswing, keep my right arm fairly straight, my wrists unhinged, make a full pause, and then as my arms and hands are going to go up about a foot, my body's going to start to work forward. So I'm set up here, my right arm's pretty straight, my right wrist is pretty straight, my club face is tilted down as I do that. And then now I'm going to let my hands go up about a foot as my body works down and forward. So that really creates a lot of that sort of whip in transition and action and overall speed. This is probably my favorite way to train it if you're willing to train it, because you can hit some goofy ones when you're doing the beginning. But in terms of training motion, I would work that. So right arm, right wrist, pretty much like right arm pretty much straight, right wrist pretty unhinged, club face slightly tilted down. Add about a foot, and as your hands and arms are going up, your lower body is going down and forward along with your upper body, sort of floating to the left. So look like this, boom to here. And then as I swing through from there, I'm trying to create as much speed as I can from that spot through. And what you'll notice happens is, and this is with iron or driver, what happens is my right arm starts to bend, my right wrist starts to bend, my hinge happens really as a natural reaction. That's a great way to increase speed. But Scott, for you, I'd say push your videos up if you haven't already, and then we'll go through that specifically for you and build a plan. Thanks all for your help. You're welcome. During the backswing, does your left wrist maintain firm to a certain point or throughout the swing? So most good players in terms of the left wrist, the biggest thing to get with the left wrist is flexion, extension, flexion, extension. So we want the left wrist to be pretty darn flat at the top if you have a neutral grip. So when you start your setup, your left wrist is going to be cupped a little bit, just naturally, be a little bit cupped. When you go through your takeaway, the wrist will still be cupped a little bit. And then from the takeaway to about left arm parallel is when your left wrist gets flat, and then it's even more flat at the top. So a normal backswing takeaway would be like slightly cupped, so a little bit of angle there, still slightly cupped. Now from the takeaway to the top, I'm flattening it, flattening. So by the time I get to left arm parallel, my wrist should be pretty darn flat or even bowed, and then more to the top. So I'd say it's neutral early. From takeaway to the top, you feel like you're bowing the left wrist. During like the second half of the backswing would be where I would normally teach. That'd be like a stock pattern. You don't do it right away. You don't do it at the top. You do it from the takeaway to the top. So it's going from extended here, gets to about flat by left arm parallel for most good players, and then it's flat or this way at the top. The error there would be to bow too much. Like if you want to make a mistake, you want your mistake to be too much bow, not too much cup, right? So too much bow would be the mistake. And unless you have a really strong grip, that would be fine. Fran, why does my hybrid have overspin to the right when they hit it? So it doesn't have overspin, right? So all the balls you hit will have some amount of backspin, unless you hit like a top shot, and then the ball can overspin, but you will still have some backspin. As to why it goes to the right, the way you're describing it with overspin to the right sounds like off-centered contact, which could be off the toe, off the heel, low on the club, etc. So Fran, that's one I'd have to see. It sounds like somewhere along the line, some of the fundamental pieces are off, causing those contact issues. So I'd have to see that one. Fran, if you want to join CogornoGolf.com, you can send me in your swings and we can look through that, or find a good coach you can work with, because it really depends mechanically on why that's happening. Michael, Eric, love the videos. Thank you. How you repeat yourself to get the message across. Thanks. I'm trying to not do that as much, but thank you. Combining twist away with the towel behind the ball would get some real solid contact. Yeah, 100%. So if I wanted solid contact, doing the twist away with a towel drill, why would that work? Well, when I do the twist away, that makes the club face square to closed. So that gives me the face angle. and gives me dynamic loft, which is one of the two things for compression. We did a compression masterclass. I don't know if you guys saw it. You should see it. And by the way, if you use the hybrid code, HYBRID, on Podia, you get the compression masterclass 50% off, all of them 50% off. And the thing we talked about for compression is, how do you compress a ball better? Well, you need less loft and you need good angle of attack. Less loft, good angle of attack. So the twist away, getting the face more tilted down at the camera, at the sky, which is good for 99% of us, gets the club face part. And then if you add in a towel, like most people will add a towel about a grip or so behind the ball. So if I put a little towel down, you could fold it up once or twice. I'm going to put a towel about a grip behind the ball. I need to have the club working above the towel so it hits down enough on it with the face. So I would say for contact, you can go twist away, twist away, twist away, and then over the towel, and start with little 3/4 ones. And you should hit, I mean, that's about as good compression-wise, a little push. That's about as good compression-wise as I could hit it. So if you're struggling for solid contact, that'd be a great place to start. One really easy way to do the twist away, which I've been like forgetting, but it's a good thing that I saw from Andrew Rice. He did this little, we did this video. If you take a tee and put it in your glove like this, and put it right on the end here so the tee's sticking out in front, and just wrap your glove up like this. So the tee's right here, see that? So when I do my backswing, if I want to do the twist away, I want the tee to point towards the camera. See this? If I do bad, the tee points over this way. Tee towards me is no good. Tee more back towards the camera gives you the twist away. I mean, what an easy drill, right? Little tee in the glove. Here, twist the tee towards the camera, right? So that your right wrist is bent back, your left wrist is flat. It'll be towards the camera and up towards the sky, right, if I do this properly. Tee's in my glove. Tee's pointed kind of towards the target. Tee towards the camera will give me the left wrist bow that I want. And that's a really cool feel. Again, you're probably doing that from the takeaway to the top. Depends on your grip, but you're probably doing that from the takeaway to that. So Michael, yes, 100%. Jeff, how do you feel hand path helps with rotation? What's your thought? So hand path and rotation definitely go together in its simplest form. The hands will go where the body rotates. That's like the starting point. So if my arms and hands were in front of me, if I turn my body on the way back, my arms and hands work in. If I turn my body on the way through, my arms and hands work in. So at its core, your hand path should move as your body moves. So as I turn during the backswing, that's the primary thing making my hands work in. Like my hands don't like go in, they really just work in because my turn, right? I actually have to lift some. And the same thing on the way through. So your hand path should go over your toe line, through your pec, over your shoulder, back through your pec, back over your toe line, and then from about here when it's over your toe line, it's at its lowest point. It's at its lowest point. Now it's working up and left. So now it's working up and left, and then it works left and up throughout the entire swing up through the trail, the lead shoulder. The main thing is your body's turning that's causing that. But as anything, you can reverse engineer. Technically, your hand should work with your body, but maybe you feel your hand path and that makes your body turn, right? You can do that too. So like if your hands, for example, if you need to feel your hands more around you on the way back, that can also make you turn more. If you need more turn in the follow through, you can feel your arms and hands working more low and around you to the left, and that can also help your turn. So you can definitely help rotation by feeling hand path. So if I feel the hands work up and left on the way through, you can definitely influence the rotation with just that piece. So yeah, you can do both of those. Scott, working on the right side bend. So for everything, for everything to sync up, need to make sure that right wrist stays bent. Yes. So, you know, the baseline here is right side bend is right shoulder closer to right hip without your hips moving forward. If I did that with a club in my hands, that would make the club get lower to the ground. It also would make the club get more shallow. So it'd make the club get lower to the ground and more shallow. Now, as the club gets lower to the ground and more shallow, let me get the bag out of here for the shadow. As that gets lower, you need to do something to offset that. So if the more I add right side bend, if I did nothing else, the club's going to be too low to the ground. So if I bend my right wrist back more, now I made some of that space up, right? So here's the shoulder, club gets lower. I add in right wrist bend and hinge, the club gets higher. And obviously I'm doing this with turn, right? But that's about the sensation of where the wrist would be. So yes, the more your right shoulder gets down and lower as you turn, and quite literally gets lower to the ground as I'm turning, for me to not hit the ball fat, I can't extend my right arm and my right wrist as much. I need to keep my right arm more bent, my right wrist more bent, and then my arm's going to be more on the side of my body, which ideally will turn. There's going to be some amount of adduction. So your arm working across your body on the way through, some amount of that, right, with the turn. But yes, more right side bend, more right arm bend, and right wrist bend would match up. Rohit with the wind questions, man. Always the wind questions. In strong crosswinds, would you advise shaping the ball against the wind direction or ride it? I often find riding, I lose distance in the greens. So I think should you shape it or ride it depends on your current skill level. So if you have the capability on command to curve the ball both ways, at that level, you should be shooting at or under par already. So that's kind of the group I'm talking to here. Then I think you can curve it into winds. For anyone who doesn't shoot under par, I would play the wind. Let me rephrase that. Anyone who doesn't shoot under par, I would play whatever shot you always play. So if your stock shot is a 5 to 15 yard fade, you should play that 5 to 15 yard fade on every single shot, regardless. Uphill, downhill, side wind, into the wind, crosswind, good lie, bad lie, whatever. You play the same shot over and over and over like a robot. If you can shoot under par, then you can start to curve the ball a little bit more and curve it into winds. You got to practice that a little bit to learn how much that takes off or adds, how much wind you can curve into, how far do you got to aim. But for 99% of the golfers that I see day to day who do not shoot under par, I would advise you play one stock shot regardless of conditions. Jack, love your channel, thank you. I have a good takeaway in backswing, but sometimes come in too steep on the downswing. I don't think I'm coming over the top or sliding. Any suggestions? Well, Jack, if you come in too steep, you are by definition coming too over the top. Unless you're talking just like vertical angle of attack this way, in which case you have your head's working too far forward or you have too much hinge. Those would be the likely cause. So if your swing plane is good, if you're talking steep in terms of like the angle of attack is steep, I would check the head not moving too far forward and then make sure you don't have too much hinge. Because I could be on plane with a ton of hinge, my head moves forward and I just hit down in the ground forever. So you would want to have like a wall over your left shoulder that you keep your head back of. So if you search my name and keep your head back or head back, and then you want to make sure you don't have too much hinge on the way down. If that's the steep thing you're talking about without being over plane, those would be the two variables that I'd check. So you'd feel like your head is more staying back and you're actually releasing the club a little bit sooner. So those would be your sensations. Head more back and actually letting the club head throw a little bit earlier to neutralize that. Robert, what's up, man? Is there cause and effect relationship between taking the driver back too far, where driver head dips past below lead shoulder, and casting? Is there a cause and effect relationship between taking the driver back too far, where the driver head dips below past the lead shoulder? So I'm thinking, Robert, you're saying this here, where it's too long and too this way, in casting. Yes. So a lot of players I see that overhinge, overbend the arms, get too narrow like this, if this is what you mean, they get a counter reaction of the opposite, the casting too soon, almost 90+% of the time. Someone who overhinges on the way back then. It's like a reaction. People who have really good lag, if you ever notice like that drill I just did, if you watch really good drivers of the ball, they have less hinge, and then the hinge starts in transition. If you get so much hinge on the way back, you can't increase hinge, you're already done. So you have to just go this way. And then you're really released too early. So I would recommend for all players, much less hinge. And then the hinging part should happen as a reaction to the body motions in transition, ideally. Jamie, can turning your front shoulder at a steeper angle, more down than around, help prevent the club too far inside and flatten the backswing? Can turning your shoulder steeper angle more down than around? Yeah, 100%. So The more I turn my left shoulder down, which should be happening through left side bend, left shoulder gets closer to the hip, left hip without the hips moving this way. So I'm doing this left side crunch as I do my backswing. That would help your lead arm stay more externally rotated, elbow down, and would make the shaft be a little bit more in front of you or deeper. The flatter you turn your shoulders and the shoulders go more internally rotated, the more your shoulder rotates this way, elbow away, club gets flatter. So shoulders flat, club rolls more this way. Shoulder steeper, club works more vertical that way. Yeah, 100% correlation. Left shoulder more down, left elbow more down, club more vertical. Left shoulder up, left elbow out, club more flat. Usually a good mix of right in between those two is good. I'd prefer someone to be left shoulder down, left elbow down, club this way versus this way. But again, depends on the patterns. Can you get into a position where your hands are still ahead of the club pass impact, more 45 pass impact? Is it more rotation, swinging out right, or keeping your chest back? Thank you, Matt. Can you get into the position where your hands are still ahead of the club, pass impact, more 45? So like real golfers don't do that, you know, like this like now, I mean, that's talking like maybe Dustin Johnson. I mean, if you look at really good golfers, this is what you mean. When the arms are 45 degrees here, we did a video on this. I don't know if it's out yet. I think it's out, about the arms extending past impact at 45. The ball, like keeping the club head behind the hands to here is completely unrealistic. A, you need a lot of speed, and B, your grip end or club face needs to be very closed or more towards closed to be able to do that. So you need a closed club face and a lot of speed. That's Dustin Johnson. Dustin Johnson is 1 in about 1 billion. Maybe literally. Like how many people are on the planet? 7 billion, 6 billion? He's 1 in 1 billion who can do that. So like for us, when you keep it now, you know, in training, if you had a stronger grip, you can keep the hands ahead of the club, even into here, and hit punch shots, like for sure. But once you start going at speed, this club head needs to throw. You don't want to hold on to it forever. You want it to throw. You just want it to throw out here. So if you throw too soon, you might have to feel like it throws a lot later. But the only way you're getting the club head to stay below the hands until that arm's parallel, like Dustin Johnson, Victor Hovland, again, 1 in hundreds of million type of players, face is very tilted down, lots of rotation and right side bend. So you need a very good club face and you need very good body rotation. For most normal people like me and us, that club is going to more even up at 45. Tiger Woods is even here. Hands aren't ahead of it. Rory McIlroy is even here, right? Most all of us are even about there. The club head's passing the hands. And that's what you want. You don't want it to be beyond that, unless you had a really strong grip and a lot of body rotation. Let's see, Layla, 17-year-old, South Florida, playing golf. Hit my leg golf club. I'm not sure what you mean there, Layla, Riley. If you want to ask that in a different form, might be able to help better. Good day, Eric. Do you know anything about the squeeze pivot and the term called caddy drag? Stressing the shafts in both ways for better lag. I do not know what those terms mean. Squeeze pivot and a term called caddy drag, stressing the shaft in both ways. I don't. I would assume what that means, and like I was talking about before, if you make a backswing where you kind of get the hands working before the club head, and you get something like this going where it's very unhinged on the way back, and you have proper sequencing, you get that hinge for free. So I've seen those drills forever. Hands go back first before the club head, have no hinge here, completely unhinged, and then start your motion. You see how that resets into a really good lag position right off the bat. We did a video on that like maybe 2 years ago, but I've seen that. That's probably been around for 100 years. Hands back before club, and then in transition, you create the speed. It's a really good sequencing drill. I don't know if that's what that means or not, but that would be my interpretation of it. Joe, appreciate you, Eric. Appreciate you too, my friend. Early extension is killing me lately. Thinking it might be tight hamstrings. Do you have any stretches? Could definitely be. There's always body parts involved. You know what I mean? Joe, I don't have any great hamstring stretches. I would just recommend going on Google or YouTube, searching hamstring stretches, and see what you like best. Hey, Eric, how long should you be looking at the ball during a swing? So you should be looking at it, you know, at setup and backswing. But it's one of those things like I always like when you're driving, you look at the road. You're not really looking at the road. You're not like concentrated on the road. It's just in your like vision. When you're looking at the ball, it's the same thing. You shouldn't be like so concentrated on the ball. The ball's just in your vision, right? And then you looking at it obviously up to the top. And then as you start your downswing, you're still looking at it, you hit it. But the sensation is once you hit it, as the club head's passing you and the ball's out here, your head, once your hands start passing your left leg, needs to start turning up to the top so that your upper body can keep turning. So on the follow through, it's basically like your eyes should follow the club and the ball. And if you hit bad shots, it's not because you picked your head up too soon or anything like that. Like your eyes need to rotate so your chest and neck, etc., can rotate into the follow through. What's the best time to square your club face in the downswing if you don't have a strong grip? As measured, so for me, when I watch videos and see people in person, better players square the club face earlier, almost across the board. So if you measure handicap levels, 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, etc., the zeros would square it earlier than the fives would square it earlier than the tens would square it earlier than the 15s, etc. How do you square it earlier? The lead wrist goes more towards bow, the right wrist goes more towards extension. So that move in transition. That's like the measured part. So you want to do it earlier. Now, some players get the club more square on the way back, and you don't have to do that as much. So the more square or closed your club face is in the backswing, the less you have to close it on the way down. Nothing's foolproof. I don't know if you watched golf yesterday. Dustin Johnson's got a great example of that. He'd be the ideal. I watched him hit a couple balls in the water, no B. It's like nothing's foolproof, right? But in terms of making things easier and optimizing, you'd want to have the club face slightly tilted down in the takeaway, about parallel with the spine, even with your form a little more towards the sky at the top. And then when you're coming down, you want the face to be pointed a little bit more towards the camera than you. So the face should be pointed a little bit more towards the camera as it shallows compared to pointed towards you. And a lot of that's happening with what I call twist, which is just flexion of the lead wrist, not cupping. So it's bowing, not cupping, and the right wrist is bent back, not flat. That will change the club face angle, right? Earlier. Now, if you can't do it earlier, you could do it later, right? There's nothing you could, if you're open here and the face is more neutral, curl it down later and play good golf. I did that for a while. It's not wrong. Hi, Eric, love your channel. Thank you. Standing and foot position for the irons. So I would say stock pattern for irons. Keeping the ball position fairly neutral through the bag is a good idea for most. The ball being off the kind of left ear as a stock, let's say for an 8-iron would be good. I like to see the feet in terms of width, where the ankles are about shoulder width. So if I drew straight line up from my ankles, they're about even with the shoulder. Back foot can be fairly straight towards 12 o'clock or flared a little. I'd prefer, if this was 12 o'clock, both feet to be flared to about 1 o'clock. So shoulder width, both feet flared to about 1 o'clock. Typically, the lead foot would get a little bit more flare than the trail foot, depending upon some other factors, but that would be a starting point. Best drill for shortening the backswing. I'd say a couple of things. One, start the downswing sooner. So sequencing wise, I would have feels, like I mentioned before, if we're like, when you make a backswing, feel like you're getting the club to about parallel to the ground and then start your downswing. It's hard to swing too long if you go at that sort of rate. So your feel would be, hey, I'm going to make a swing and I'm going to get the club to about parallel to the ground. Once it gets here, I'm starting down. So it'd be like this. I mean, that's really tough to go too long when you're doing that. It also depends on why you're too long. If you're too long because your arms travel too far, I would take an alignment rod, put it underneath your armpit so that all of it sticks out in front of you like this. Take your setup position, so alignment rod through my armpit, and make my backswing. Once the alignment rod hits my arm, which will happen at about left arm parallel, that's my cue to stop down or stop on the way back. Now my arms will go about another foot just with momentum, and then I'll make my downswing. So you can feel alignment rod in your right armpit, sticks out in front. Once your left arm hits it, you stop and you swing through. I'm going to probably actually put this about half and half. So I go here, here, and just hit some little ones with that. But starting your downswing sooner is like the main key. If your swing's too long because you have too much hinge, you need to feel like no hinge. So when you make your backswing, feel like it's unhinged, like your thumbs are pointed up and behind you the whole time. So it depends. It could be you might have too much body turn, your arms might travel too far, you might have too much hinge, your arms might break down too much, you need to feel more width. So it all depends. If your arms break down too much, you got to do a bucket drill. So bucket between your chest, between your arms, keep that in forever. Like that's another thing that would shorten your swing for sure. So if you did one of these and you put like a bucket in your chest, I'll do this, doesn't mess up my mic, but it's in your chest and within your arms, and you learn to hit balls with it here, that's going to really shorten your swing and give you a lot of width, right? So those are some options you can do. Do the hanger drill. Don't let the clip get down to your arm. Probably got to explain that one for it to make sense. Jason, hey Eric, always cup my right wrist at impact. In slow motion, I could see my belly's facing directly at the ball and my left arm tends to slightly bend. I also feel my right arm doing the push. Yeah, so if your right wrist is to, let's say, flip this way, flexed, you feel like your right wrist is more bent back. If your belly's facing the ball and you don't have turn, so if you're here and you have no turn, your right wrist is always going to throw to get to the ball because that in all likelihood means you stood up too much. So you need to feel your belly turning. So by the time you're at impact, your belly points about 45 degrees in front, and you're going to feel like your right wrist, for you, if you throw too soon, you're going to feel like your right wrist stays bent back forever. So you want to feel your belly turn 45 and your right wrist very bent at impact. And just start with some little half ones and then slowly start to build your way up. But those would be the sensations. Learn the turn pieces and then keep the right wrist more bent as you work your way up. That's something you got to start slower and work up. You probably have to get the rotation piece to be able to get the trail wrist conditions better. Jack, how do I get a private lesson with you? If you just go into the descriptions of any of our YouTube videos, there's always a link in there that says book an in-person lesson with Eric. So search any of our YouTube videos, go down in the description and you'll see the link in there. Rohit, in transition, some say increase squeeze of left bicep to chest. Others, like Justin Rose, have a feel of arms down while keeping back to target longer in early downswing then pivot. Which is better for playing? So neither. It depends on what you need to feel. Let's say golfer A, his arms come off his chest too much and he has no body rotation. Does he need to feel Justin Rose get the arms down even more with even less body rotation? Or does that golfer, whose arms are already down in front with no body rotation, need to feel the left arm squeeze into the pec as he creates rotation like the X factor? What about the golfer who, during the downswing, does the rotation pieces good and the left arm actually squeezes too far across and the arms hands get too deep? Would that golfer want to feel the arms down in front with less rotation like Justin Rose? Or would they want to feel them even deeper when they go back? Right, I think the answer then becomes obvious, that the golfer needs to feel the opposite of what their issue is. Not everyone here needs to feel the arm pressing against the pec. Not everyone here should feel the arms pumped down, because it depends what you do, and you have to hit checkpoints. So I would say from at the top to left arm parallel, your knees should be back to parallel, your hips should be square, and your left arm should be in line with your right pec. Hips square, knees parallel to each other, hands on with the right pec, and then you could feel anything, whatever you need to feel to get to that. So it's not a right or wrong. It's like, is it correct to swing more to the right, or is it correct to swing more to the left? Who are you talking to? What if a golfer swings way to the right already? Should they swing more to the right? Well, no. They need to feel more to the left, so they swing neutral. What if a golfer swings way to the left? They need to feel way to the right to swing neutral. So the feels that you do, there's no correct or incorrect. It's whatever you need to do to hit the stock checkpoints. It's a good question. Bill, what in your opinion, I would say of the golfers I see, Rohit, majority of golfers are not like Justin Rose, right? He would be an anomaly. Most golfers' arms are off the chest, shaft is steep, no body rotation. So most golfers need to feel like the left arm pulls in against the pec when they start down, and the right arm works behind them more as they start their downswing to keep the arms in and out of the shaft. I'd say 8.5 out of every 10 golfers I've ever seen in my life need more of that versus the Justin Rose. Guys like Justin Rose are elite and have problems like on the other end, need to feel the opposite, typically. Bill, what in your opinion is the biggest reason why folks lose distance and height in their golf ball when they get past age 50? I'm 55. I'm really frustrated by both these occurrences. So the answer to that is speed. And the answer is clubhead speed. So as you get older, your clubhead speed decreases. And so if you made the same exact golf swing, everything was the same, and I swing the club 10 miles an hour slower, the ball would go lower and shorter. So club head speed as you get older is the part that makes the ball, you lose distance and height. It's just speed. That's it. That's the only answer to that. So the idea then would be, how do you get speed back? Or what else can you do if you have less speed? Can you change some pieces during the downswing? Can I increase backswing turn and length? You know, you want to probably combat that by feeling some other pieces during your downswing, ideally. So like the less speed you have, especially with driver, you need to really make sure the club head throws more past impact. So you're throwing more, so you have more dynamic loft, so the ball launches higher and can carry farther even with your less speed. So more throw with the less speed you have. Tom, grandson's 12. In his backswing, he has virtually no bend in his right elbow. Let's see here. Sorry, I lost my spot again. Let's see. Okay, sorry, Tom. In my grandson's 12. In his backswing, he has virtually no bend in his right elbow. Is this okay, or should his trail elbow fold? It's okay that it stays pretty straight, so long as on the way down, it bends some from there. So you don't have to bend it more on the way back. Most good golfers are somewhere around 90 at the top, maybe a little bit wider, a little bit more narrow, but they're about 90. And then they're still about 90, a little bit wider at arms parallel, and then it goes wider at the bottom. If he's wider with his arms, that's fine. I'd actually leave it. I prefer that to too bent. But then as he comes down, the right arm should naturally, if I went like this, should naturally bend on the way down. So the more I go like this, the more long the arm is and the more unhinged I have on the way back, the more it should actually look good on the way down. I actually prefer that, especially if they're younger, to create more speed. Dennis, so I realize all these questions, I'm going too slow again. Can you use the towel drill along with the T drill for fairway woods and hybrids? 100%. Can do both those together. For those that miss that, that should be in, I think, today's video on fairway woods. If you guys haven't heard me earlier, we are doing a special on all master classes, not just the fairway wood hybrid, but all of them, 50% off. Coupon code's hybrid, HYBRID, HYBRID. Mary posted the Podia link within the comments here. It's in all the descriptions. 50% off all of the master classes are on there, or you can get them for free as a member at cogornogolf.com. It's like our little commercial. Dan, Eric, when I'm making a change, how do you transition from the exaggeration phase to it just being part of the normal swing? How long do your students take for a field to become real, and then what? So I'd say, Dan, the answer to this is working grids in your practice. We did a video that probably came out a week or 2 or 3 ago. We do so many. That was like, it's titled The One Thing You Need to Do in Your Practice. So instead of me explaining it all here, Dan, if you watch that, Eric Cogorno, one thing you do in your practice, doing the grids with the consequence is how you transition your feel for the exaggeration. How long does it take for a feel to become real? Usually months, depending upon what it is. It also depends on how much you practice. If you hit balls every day, in 1 month, an exaggerated feel should become a minor feel. If you practice once a week, that's probably 6 months. And you have to one or two the biggest things to do, and keep doing those and only those till you get them. The mistake we all make is just trying something new all over the place. Like when you watch our videos, you should work with a coach, me or somebody else, anyone, and find the best things to do and then keep hammering those, right? Watch for entertainment purposes, but you're really just trying to find the 1 or 2 pieces and then hammer those. So Dan, it depends on how often you practice. More frequent practice, the better. Not a million reps, but it's about doing it daily or as close to daily. 1 month for exaggeration to become semi-normal, months and 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 months likely doing the same thing. As a stock answer, let's say you have too much cup in your left wrist and you need more bow. I would do that for like 6 months. That would be my mindset. Hey, for the next 6 months, I'm gonna do this. I did my backswing turn and swing length with JT for like 6 to 8 months. Now, I only hit balls really once a week when we do videos. So I do think that it'd taken me 1 to 2 months with my like old practice, but months and months and months and months. But you should be getting better as you do it. Should not be like a worse before better. Your first session or 2 might hit some goofy shots because things don't match up, but it should be better then. What's your recommended backswing trigger? Because I don't have one. You could have a couple. Some people, here's a couple quick options. Some people like to tap the club head. So you're kind of tapping the club on the ground a couple of times, then you go. Some people like to waggle their feet and then you press into your left and then push off. I think those are 2 pretty good ones. You can start tapping the club and then go. You can do 1 or 2 waggles with your arms and hands and your feet and then go. It'd be like a Jack Nicklaus, a lot of pros. You can push off your left into your right as you go back. Those would be a couple decent options to start with. There's no right or wrong there, though. There's a lot of ways to do it. George, how should my right shoulder feel during my backswing? I struggle with closed shoulders at address. smothering an impact. So in general, your right shoulder at your setup position should work up and back behind you. So you know, it depends on what you currently do, George. I'd have to see your swing, but you do want to feel some adduction during your backswing. So your arms working this way a little bit as you're turning to get some depth on the way back. So like with your right arm only, I was doing this with JT today, you'd feel like your right arm's kind of going as far as you can, and then you're pulling it back in to get to your left hand. That would be like a good position. So you're letting your right arm go all the way back, and then you're pulling it in to meet your left hand. So your right shoulder should turn up and back behind you, right? Like should turn up and back and should feel like it retracts a little with a little abduction. You know, whether you need to feel any of that, George, or not, I'd have to see your swing. Simon, should you try to keep your right elbow bent in front of your right hip through impact? Not for everybody. So, I mean, if your right arm is too internally rotated and you have this sort of look, then yeah, you want to feel more external this way and your right arm a little bit more adducted in front of you. So if you're more here and then like here, then you need to feel more this way in front of you. So that's external rotation and adduction, like your arm is working across you as your elbow goes a little more in front. So if you're too far behind, you'd feel the elbow pointing a little bit more in, not like pulling it into your hip. You're pulling it this way, not down. It's this way across. So you'd be feeling your arm working across your chest and your elbow be pointing a little bit more down towards the ground in early transition. That would be a piece, you know, like for me, sometimes, because I have some shoulder mobility issues, so my shoulder gets more this way at the top. Sometimes if my elbow is too far behind me or if I slide too much, I need to feel more of the external rotation adduction this way. So like my right bicep working into my pec during the downswing just to make it look neutral. But not everyone needs to do that. It's all dependent. So my right arm works across me with my elbow more down. Yeah, and those for me feel good, right? Like I could use a little bit more of that. It depends on your shoulder motion. A lot of these things just depend. It could really be the answer to every question. Eric, when I get uncomfortable on the course, I pull the ball left, straight shot left. So you have a couple options. You could move the ball more back. You could aim more to the right, play the pull. You could swing more to the right or feel like you swing more from inside. So I would say, Jaden, you could try a couple of those, you know, again, without me seeing. When you come down here, you could aim to the right and play it. You could move the ball more back. So move the ball back in your stance, handle more forward. You could swing the club more from inside, or you could swing the club more to the right past impact. Those would be some pieces that you might start with. Depends on why you're doing it, you know what I mean? Could literally just be the ball position. There could be several factors. Luke Herrick, speaking of wrist conditions, is there any drawback to adding bow to the left wrist, extension of the right wrist early in the takeaway instead of to the top? Not so much. Just sometimes, like when you do something so early, you run out of range of motion. Now, if you're like Victor Hovland and you get it here like this, you keep that up to the top and then do more in transition, then no problem. Some people do it so early like this, and then they're kind of all maxed out, and then they have a hard time keeping it or doing more in transition versus it being a little cupped, flat, bowed, bow more. But I would say there's not a lot of inherent risk there. It'd be much better to do it early and do it than not do it at all, right? Let's see, Eric, at what point should I exactly turn my back? Oops. At what point should I exactly turn my back when I do my swing with my club? So I'm thinking you're saying like turning during the backswing. You should have a gradual turn during the backswing. So if I go from 0 turn to 90 turn, I'd be turned kind of gradually in 30s as a stock model. So I'm 30 degrees turn with my chest and shoulders at club parallel. Then I'm 60 degrees by here, and then I'm 90 or more to the top. So I would go kind of in 30s. That'd be like, not everyone does that, but that's like a easy model. So I'm turn 30, turn 60, turn 90. So my back's towards the target. And as I start my downswing, my chest and shoulders stay back 45 degrees when I get to about halfway down. Not sure if that's what you mean there, but that's my answer. Richard, for right-handed golfer, how much tension in left tricep to keep arm straight? Not a lot. Slight bend at top is okay. Yes, it is. If left triceps too relaxed or left elbow collapse too much, no. No, I don't think trying to keep tension in your left tricep to keep the arm straight is advantageous at all. Especially because I actually wouldn't mind it being a little bit bent and then working towards straight. As you work down, there could be some advantage to that. If you need your left arm straighter, I would widen your right. I wouldn't really press the left tricep too much or flex that. I would lengthen my right arm to get more of the width, more of the trail arm. Let's see. Hello. Eric, club is really letting, oh, my club is really letting the rough go. Any advice on playing clubs out of long clubs? Yeah, so I think, Joel, so hitting out of rough is just hard. Yeah, so let's start with that. You know, it's a hard shot. So like I'd keep the expectations low. If your rough is super, you watch guys and gals on TV, sometimes you even got to lay up. Sometimes if you hit it in the rough on a hard hole, you're going to make bogey. And that's okay. Like sometimes there's a good bogey. I would always try and miss in the right spot, give yourself the best chance of up and down. Like there's always not a perfect solution here. Depends on your lie. A couple stock things I would say if I'm in the rough would be I would get a little closer to the ball. I'd grip down on the club a little bit. And then depending upon my lie, if I'm gripping down and getting closer, I'm going to make a swing that's like shoulder height. So it's like a 3/4 swing. And I'd take more club than normal and probably play to the front edge. Because if I'm playing front edge distance and you get it right, you're on the front edge. If you're wrong, you're short and can chip up. And if you get some kind of a flyer lie, you can hit middle or green. Steve Saraki, one of our coaches at Cogorno Golf, mentioned that in one of our threads. And I was like, oh, I never really thought about that. But like that's a really good way to do it. And then I thought, hey, when I used to play tournament golf, that is what I would do. When I'm in the rough and uncertain, I always play the front edge distance. That way you have flexible with options. So I would, let's say I had 150 yards and I normally hit a 9-iron 150. I'd take an 8-iron, grip down 1 inch closer to the ball. I'm going to go shoulder to shoulder. I'm going to feel like I swing a little bit more up and down on it, and I'm going to add a little speed. So grip down, a little closer, shoulder to shoulder. Ball might be slightly farther back. Hit down with a little more speed. And that would be how I would play out of the rough. And again, understand my situation. Like if I'm in the rough, I made a mistake off the tee, depending upon what kind of club I'm hitting. If I'm hitting if I have like a 4-iron distance, then I'm like, you know, par would be great here. If I have a wedge, I might be a little more aggressive, but that's where I'd start with. Sam, problem rotating, not shifting laterally into my left side on the downswing, yet I hit fat shots. What's a good drill to practice? I have a problem rotating and not shifting laterally into my left side on the downswing. Well, if you do, I'm assuming you're saying you go too laterally. Yeah, you hit fat shots. So a couple things. So if you do go lateral and your hips go forward, you might be going too lateral and then your upper body tilts too much. See how when I do that, the club gets lower to the ground? So I'm actually going to hit fat shots. What I would feel if I were you doing that would feel my lead hip and my lead shoulder working more down, forward, and around. Lead hip and lead shoulder working more down, forward, and around. And that's going to help if we have a low point here with a golf ball. That's going to help me get my low point more forward. So lead shoulder, lead hip, down, forward, and around as you turn to get the low point more forward. You can put a piece of tape, stick, towel on the ground behind the ball for a low point. We did that in one of our solid contact videos not too long ago. All right, I'm going to try and roll through here. I never get through all these. Roland, struggle with a low inside takeaway. Any fixes? Yes. Feel like your left palm is more towards the sky, not towards the ground. Left palm towards the sky, club head more up and out. Eric, what are your thoughts on shaft flex and how that might influence the swing? Could write a book on it. Lots of potential things. Don't have a quick answer on that. Very important shaft flex. Would highly recommend getting fitted for everyone on here. Maybe John Hutzler, that's our in-house fitter. He's in West Virginia. We can give you his contact info. Great guy, great fitter. Frank, how do I improve my half moon shape? I keep staying in nearly the same plane. I'm not sure what that means. How do I improve my half moon shape? Half moon shape. How do I improve my half moon shape? Do you know what that means? Not a clue. I'm not sure what that means, Frank. Nearly the same plane. Scott, you got it, my friend. Jens, Eric, love your channel. What is the optimal length of backswing? I would say a good length backswing is it depends on what club you have. So with the irons, so let's start with this. The lead arm, I'd say up to the top at about 10 to 11 o'clock. Here's 9 o'clock. That'd be too short. Here's 12 o'clock, too long. Here's 11 would be good if you can get there, or between 10 and 11 with the lead arm. And then it depends on how much hinge you have. I'd say with a driver, like from this side, getting the club head right in line with the hands or pretty close to parallel to the ground would be great, especially with the longer clubs. With a wedge or shorter iron, I'd be okay with the hands being more 10 o'clock with the club more here. Longer the club, more 11 o'clock, even up to this with the driver. The longer the club, the longer the backswing should be. Hubert, do you have any recommendation how to use the live view day today practice routine. Yeah, hey, Hubert, and I would recommend I stick with this because it works good. When you're practicing, I do the 20 wedges warm up, no video, just do distance control. Then I do 20 or 30 with your mechanics, and then I'd set the live view up and then work on the 1 to 2 pieces you need to do. Ensure that you have a correct spot to hit, right? Or a correct checkpoint. And then you're utilizing the lines in the video to make sure you exaggerate enough. And you're pushing your exaggeration far enough where you actually do the movement. That's 20 or 30 reps. After that, you do some kind of skill thing. That would probably be a grid. You work up your bag, try and hit the ball within a specific zone in the distance with routines, feeling that same piece, and then do driver, grid, or switch target. So I would use it in that phase as much as humanly possible every day. It's the frequency that matches up. Okay, a couple of quick ones here. Pete, do you actively push the right heel inwards at the start of the downswing? I don't. You could. Most players, that push is going to happen towards the later part of the downswing. Sharon, yeah, guys, I'm not going to get through all these. It's my fault. Please demonstrate some closed circle drills. I'm not sure what that means. Ken, Eric, getting loose at the top of the backswing. Right elbow flares out a bit. Left elbow bends too much. Not sure what to feel. Get better stretch top and right-handed golf. So if your right elbow flares out this way, put a glove under it. Keep it in all the way to the top. And the left elbow bends too much. Feel the right arm wider. So glove in, keep it in. Feel the right arm straighter. At what point should weight come off your right heel on the downswing? I assume before club is parallel. Yeah, usually later. It depends. There's different patterns. There's a Justin Thomas high arm, foot up to shallow it. And then there's Brendan Todd, who has his right leg rolling hard. So I'd say later during the downswing. Should your right leg stay flexed or straighten a bit in the backswing? Right leg should definitely straighten some from its starting position during the backswing. George, thanks for the tip. You're welcome. Definitely need to exaggerate feel of keeping right shoulder back behind me in the backswing. Yeah, absolutely. Joe, if your driver ball position is left heel, where's 5-iron, wedge, etc.? Left ear. Josh, how do I stop hitting thin pushes? I don't know, Josh. I'd have to see your swing. There's just too many potential variables. Find a good coach or sign up Cogorno Golf and I could take a look at it. Simon, hey, Eric, what's up, man? What's your take on the stinger? What club do you use? Love the stinger if you can do it. You need a lot of speed to get the ball to carry that far with a low enough dynamic loft. You would do something like that with like a 3 or 4-iron. Paul, traveling interview series videos were fantastic. Thank you. Seems to have cemented more closed face opinion. Why do you think the world all seems to be moving this way and took so long? I'm not sure. I would say, Paul, actually, we're really starting to do a lot more videos in the fall before we left on that. And as online coaching has increased dramatically over the past 2 years, and I have to get to the point a lot quicker with someone in like a quick video. Getting the club face more square is more immediate results, and you really start to see over thousands of people that it creates so many issues. So I think it's because it's the right thing. To be more consistent with irons and hitting 70% force, a good adjustment. Yes. If so, how can I swing, relax, trying to crush the ball? Search my name in tempo, Eric Cogorno tempo, and watch that full video. That'll explain that. I pull too many shots. Why? Probably because your swing direction is too far outside in. You need to get your arms and hands in club working more from inside to out. Also make sure the ball position is not too far forward. You're not aimed too far left. Richard, this is great. Thank you, sir. All questions and advice make me think, if relevant, whether to apply to my swing. Our previous rapid fire session on YouTube. Yes, they are. And I would also, Richard, again, find a coach, send them your swing, find the 1 or 2 things to work on and hammer them home. Let's see. Mike Moss, it seems to be pure wisdom. Your cooperation was so beautiful. What do you think about it? I think Mike is great. We would love to do more videos with him. Very nice on and off the course. Very nice guy. Very enthusiastic. How much club head speed do you need to hit a stinger? I'd say your driver speed needs to be certainly over 100. In the 110 to 120 range would be great. You don't have to. You can do it at slower swing speeds, but that's what I would say. Because if you're slower than that, the ball's not going to carry far enough. Eric, love your channel. Thank you. Could you show the correct movement of the left forward leg during the downswing? I can. Search Eric Cogorno left leg. That'll go through that thoroughly. Went from 65 to 55 gram shot, pulling everything left. Yeah, maybe go back or I'd get a fitting there. So, okay. Sorry for the rapid fire at the end, but I always take too long in the beginning. Hope you guys enjoyed. Again, one more time, who didn't hear before, coupon code HYBRID, HYBRID, is 50% off all of the master classes. Mary put a link in this chat. They're in the bottom of every YouTube video, 50% off all of them that we've ever done like that. So if you want to hop on that, if I did say about sending your swing in or you want to work with me, if I can build you a plan, cogornogolf.com. And we'll see you guys next Monday. Thanks.
And staying over 100.